Hi, I'm Craig Huey, and the propositions on the California ballot, they can be so confusing. In fact, these propositions, sometimes when you think you're voting yes, you're voting no. Sometimes when you think you're voting no, you're voting yes. And the politicians don't make it easy. You cannot trust the voter guide, the pros and cons. Sometimes they select people who can't articulate or actually are embarrassing to a particular position. The Attorney General of the state of California writes these to kind of point people in a certain direction that they favor. In other words, it's biased, unethical way of wording a ballot proposition. And on the ballot are a lot of propositions this time. The reason there's a lot of propositions is because the politicians believe that many of these ballots are more likely to be voted yes on in November than they are in the primary. So I'm going to go through these ballot propositions. I'm going to go through them very quick. I know some people would like a little bit more detail, but a lot of people just need to get a kind of an understanding of them. And that's what we're doing right now. So put on your seatbelt. We're going to go through these really fast. We're going to start with Proposition 14. And these propositions are basically selected and going on numbers from 1, 2, 3, 4. So in the primary, the last one was 13. And now we're starting with Proposition 14. All right. So let's take a look. The 14 is the stem cell bond. Now, for those who have voted for a while, you may remember that a number of years ago, we passed a $3 billion bond on stem cell research. And what happened was that the money went to buildings and to personnel and went to all different types of things, but produced very little in the way of any type of return on the investment. So they've run out of money. And so they've said, we're going to now have a $5.5 billion bond, and $2.3 billion is interest. In other words, $7.8 billion in this bond. Let me explain something about a bond first. Since 2000, California voters have authorized $27 billion in bonds for all kinds of natural resource projects that are somewhat related, but a lot of it's not spent. And for every dollar raised, almost $2 has to be paid back. It's not free money. The taxpayer dollars come from the general state fund. That pays the bills. And as interest rates go up, as they will, so will the payment of interest on this bond. It'll go up, it could go up, dramatically. And we have too much debt right now, billions of dollars of debt. Bonds are the most expensive way to finance any project. You should never vote for a bond unless there's a real dire emergency. And in this case, this is a bond, so we're recommending a no. Here's the thing. Venture capital, huge amounts of venture capital is out there looking for ways to invest, including stem cell research. There's no lack of investment money. The government doesn't have to do this. The taxpayers don't have to do this. Let it be on the shoulders of private individuals who take the risk. And if it doesn't work out, like the first bond didn't work out, it's the investors who take the hit, not the taxpayers. This last bond was filled with corruption, mismanagement, and waste of money. That in and of itself should say, don't do it. But we're in a pandemic recovery. We have devastated the tax base in California. We have so many people out of work. We have businesses shut down, some shutting down forever. To incur more debt absolutely does not make sense. So not only is the bonds the biggest taxpayers ripoff, this has to be the #1 ripoff issue on the ballot right now. So yes for a $7.8 billion sale bond, or no opposes the bond. we're recommending a no vote on Proposition 14. Proposition 15 is taxes on commercial property. This is the first step in repealing the protections of Proposition 13, the Howard Jarvis protections that have basically saved people's homes from property taxes rising at astronomical rates. And it's saved businesses and apartments and what have you. In this case, they're trying to take commercial property. They're trying to take 13 and take away a little piece of it. Then they'll take away another little piece of it. And finally, they'll take it away completely. We've got to stop this. I'm opposed to this. They estimate that it could raise $6.5 to $11.5 billion in new taxes. So all the politicians and bureaucrats and all the people who want to raise more big government spending, they're for it. But taxpayers, you know, when you talk about commercial property, it's going to devastate commercial property. It's going to devastate people who've already been devastated. It's going to be something where you feel it too, because, you know, when taxes go up on business, business has to pass along that tax. And what will happen is it'll accelerate the number of companies leaving California, jobs leaving California. It is a wrong thing to do. Now, unfortunately, 49% of the Californians are saying they're leaning towards it. 21% are saying no. 30% don't know. So I encourage you, tell your friends and neighbors, vote no on Proposition 15. Proposition 16, this allows diversity in employment, education. It's basically repealing the ban on affirmative action. Now, let me tell you what that is. Back in 1996, the voters were outraged because certain classes of people were giving special favor by government. It was a form of discrimination that was written into the law. And the voters passed a law saying government's got to be neutral. Opportunity should be neutral. And that's been the law of the land since 1996. Well, those who have opposed it have put this on the ballot that basically legalizes discrimination. It legalizes racism. And Proposition 16, a yes vote, makes it legal for discrimination. A no keeps affirmative action illegal, keeps it fair, keeps it right. We're recommending a no vote on 16. The yeses, 40%, no's, 26%, uncertain, 34%. Proposition 17, voting before a prisoner completes parole, I should say parole. You know, 50,000 people every year are on parole. What is parole? It's like 2 or 3 years that allows a person who is out of jail to prove that they can stay out of jail and that they're going to live according to the law. And once they prove that the way the law is now, then they have the right to be able to vote. This reverses that. This says you can register and vote when you're on parole. I just don't think that's probably right. It softens crime and the punishment. Let's let them go through those few years to prove that they're going to be good citizens. What about Proposition 18? This allows a 17-year-old who turns 18 by November election to vote in the March primary. In other words, right now, somebody could be 17 in high school and they can't vote in the primary, but in November, they turn 18, and so they can vote. So they say, well, it's only fair to let them vote, you know, in the primary to determine who's going to be on the ballot in November. I disagree with that. I think we keep the law the way it is. You know, high school kids with their friends, with classmates, with the administration and with teachers oftentimes are too influenced to be able to make independent decisions. By the time they're 18, let them make that decision. I think that's a good way of keeping it. I don't see a need to change it. Yes, allows a 17-year-old to vote in the primary. No, keeps it the way it is, that you cannot vote until you're 18. I think that's the right way to do it. I'm recommending a no vote. Proposition 19 changes the tax rules on moving and inheritance. And the real estate and Chamber of Commerce groups have really gotten behind this. But in a sense, it's a weakening of Proposition 13. Because what it's doing, it creates new taxes on inheritance property, especially hurting those who are farmers. But it creates this new taxes on inheritance property. It gives some good benefits. It gives the ability to move to different anywhere in the state of California and keep Proposition 13 requirements. But it's a flawed bill with a poison pill that's started repealing 13 and harmful to anybody getting inherited property. I say, vote no on this. So a yes vote changes the tax law, a no keeps the tax law the way it is, and we recommend a no vote. For Proposition 20, it increases the criminal penalties and stops early release of prisoners. As a Christian, I love justice reform. I love the first step that President Trump has done in creating a criminal justice reform. And what Joe Biden and Bill Clinton and so many of these did was devastating to the Black community and to minorities. It was horrific. And so some of that, which is the worst of the ways of doing justice, has to be changed. Well, the promise of Proposition 47 and 57 a few years back was to make some of those changes. But it was hijacked by the bureaucrats in the legislature to create terrible laws. 47, taking away felonies and misdemeanors for theft and sexual crime and what have you, has created an increase in crime, and the police not doing anything about it. 57 allowed early release of prisoners. Absolutely horrific. And so, reclassifying assaults with deadly weapons, date rape, child abuse, and other crimes to make them violent and make them have penalties. We have to do this to have safety in our neighborhoods, safety in our cities. It's absolutely incredible what has happened with California being the #1 crime rate. This will help the police. This will help families. This will help people be more safe. We're recommending a strong yes on Proposition 20. Yes means increase the penalties, stop the early releases. No, keep the law as it is now. Proposition 21, new rent control on residential property. What this does, it allows local government to impose more rent control, this time not on apartments, residential property. And we're absolutely opposed to this. The rent control on apartments has been classic, just the way it is throughout history, throughout the United States. When you have rent control, you don't have new supply because you take away incentive to build. You don't have upkeep because you don't have the incentive to have the upkeep. And you have favoritism because you have people working around things with all kinds of maneuvers that are favorable to some people and not to others. It's really, anytime you interfere with a free market, you have unintended consequences. And these negative unintended consequences will be economically devastating. California should not do this. We cannot do this rent control. So a yes lowers the rent control, and basically, I should say not lowers, but it allows rent control to houses. A no keeps it as it is. In other words, no rent control on residential property. We recommend a very strong no on Proposition 21. Now, 22. Boy, I know you've seen emails and Facebook ads and slate mailings and direct mail and TV commercials, YouTube pre-rolls, and everything possible on 22. A couple $100 million being spent, mainly by Uber and Lyft and DoorDash. And the amount of money going into this is huge. What it is AB 5 was passed, which said you can't have independent contractors. One of the worst bills ever passed in California, one of the worst bills ever passed in the United States. And it's devastated companies. I had to move my ad agency out of California to Tennessee, largely because of AB 5, where I couldn't have independent contractors. They had to be employees. And as an ad agency, you can't operate that way. And same thing with Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash and these app companies. They don't have employees. They have independent contractors who want to make some extra money, who want to have a part-time job, who want to have their own hours. It's an awesome opportunity for so many hundreds of thousands of people. And it's good for the consumer who wants to get a quick ride and wants to get food at the door. But AB 5 is destroying it. So Uber, Lyft, DoorDash all say, we can't operate in California if we have to do this. So out of their survival, they put up the money to put this on the ballot and then to market this to be able to pass so that they carve out an exception. So I don't like exceptions, but in this case, there's no choice. We have to keep this. We can't, this exception for these app-based transportation delivery companies, because it's the right thing to do. And so I wish this was repealing all of AB 5. It's only giving an exemption to these companies, but at least it's the first step. So a yes allows the employees to be contract employees just like they are now. A no requires the companies to treat the employees as employees entitled to full benefits. So I'm recommending a strong yes. Now, 45% of the people are saying yes, 31% are saying no, 25% are uncertain. So with these propositions, they can be tricky. Don't be fooled by the commercials. A yes is a vote for freedom, and a vote for the consumer, and a vote against the tyranny of AB 5. Proposition 23, kidney dialysis. Now, if you voted for a while, you remember kidney dialysis on the ballot not long ago. Well, it failed, so now they put something back similar to it. It's the SEIU and the Nurses Union. And it's basically to make our medicine into like you'd have in Cuba or Venezuela, socialized medicine, all government run. That's what they want. They don't want the competition, which drives down prices. They don't want the competition, which creates new innovation. They don't want the competition that is good for the consumer to be able to have choices. They want it all, dialysis patients to go to the government-run clinics or hospitals. Forget that. We're recommending a no vote on this. A yes, it imposes new restrictions on dialysis clinics. A no, it keeps it as it is. These restrictions will put these companies out of business. And so we're recommending a no vote. Proposition 24, California privacy, bureaucracy, and police. I'm president of an ad agency, so we deal with digital marketing all the time. And so I understand how bad it is in Europe with the European privacy laws. that crush entrepreneurs, crush small business owners, crush the consumer in being able to get information and that they want. It's devastating to email, to direct mail. It's devastating to digital ads. It is devastating. And so that's why Europe, consumers are worse off, businesses are worse off, unemployment is higher. We don't want to turn America into a European nation. We don't want California turned into it, but that's what these politicians have tried to do in the name of privacy. They want to set up a brand new bureaucracy and police this thing, and it'll be devastating to businesses, devastating to consumers. So, we want to defeat this. We recommend a no vote. A yes vote sets up a new expensive bureaucracy with police powers and no accountability and a total nightmare. And a no vote keeps things as they are. We recommend a no vote on 24. So finally, we got Proposition 25. What? It replaces bail bonds with a 2018 law. Sacramento passed this law in 2018, no bail. They got scared, New York, crime spiking, the people with no bail, it's become horrific. And right now they want the courts to decide and have an honor system. And with the fact that there's inequalities in the bail, maybe there's something to correct it. But this is extreme. This will hurt the safety of the community. This will let criminals out. This will let crime go rampant. I'm recommending a no vote. A yes vote says no bail. A no vote says keep the bail. And I would highly recommend, if you care about safety in the community, vote no on Proposition 25. So there you have it. From 14 to 25, tried to do that as fast as I could. Go to the website, electionforum.org or craighuey.com. And then I will be glad to answer any questions that you have on any of these particular propositions. But I hope you found that helpful. And as you found that helpful, let me just tell you, get our newsletter if you don't already get it, and keep informed with the election. And in this election, there's two things I'd recommend that you do. One, get my book, The Deep State, so you read about what's going on right now with the deep state, but also about voter fraud, with the chapter on voter fraud that everybody should be aware of. And then finally, for those who are evangelical Christians, conservative Catholics, I wrote this book for this election called The Christian Voter. And it talks about the non-negotiables. It talks about how to vote for, not against your values. This is a guidebook to give to people. So order this book, give it away to as many people as you can to help influence this election. And then for these propositions, send this this video out to as many people on your list, email list, post on Facebook, and then drive people to the voter guide on the website so they know how to vote for, not against their values. Hey, you guys have been great. Thanks for listening. And this election, let's vote right. All right? Thank you.